So hello, everybody. Welcome to our talk. We have here Gracie Mangione, of course, speaking, and Sir Rodney Sir. We have Norma Mangione, Maria Dominguez, Clara d'Agosta, Hannah Watson, and me. So I'm just going to read a brief bio from our two guests before we start. So Gracie Mangione is an independent art dealer, consultant, and curator to individuals and museums of corporations worldwide. She pioneered the East Village art scene, opening her first gallery in her bathroom of her apartment in 1982. Grace continued to exhibit contemporary art in the East Village, Soho, Chelsea galleries throughout 2002. She's been a member of Art Table for more than a decade, where she has served on the board as well as co-chaired the program committee for 3 years. Mangione has been advised to New York Women's Magazine and has served as art advisory committee for the New School for Social Research. And she's currently a member of the Feature Hudson Foundation, as well as the Emily Harvey Foundation in New York and Venice. She's a frequent lecturer and juror to educational institutes and museums worldwide. Sir is a writer and artist, archivist, and activist, true fixture of the East Village. He was a co-director with business partner Gracie Mangione of the Gracie Mangione Gallery from 1983 to 1988. He helped establish international reputations of many young and emerging artists. In the late 80s, Sir shifted his practice to archiving works for artists affected by growing AIDS crisis and epidemic, leading to his involvement with visual aids, concentrating primarily on the establishing archive projects to an open access web-based platform. He began to establish the Archive Project with his longtime partner, Fluxus artist Jeffrey Hendricks, organizing a series of exhibitions. And Sir is an independent archivist working with artists, estate concerns, and continues to collaborate, working through drawings variously on visual arts, performances, poetry, community archivist, and his various writing projects. So we also have Norma from Norma Mangione Gallery, her crew, Maria Dominguez, Clara d'Agosta, and they're currently in Turin Gallery. We have Hannah Watson from TJ Boulting, and she's in London, and me, Bart Keijsers Koning, here in New York. We are setting up an exhibit, or have set up an exhibit featured on Nada Art Fair. It was inspired by a show from 1983, which was called Sofa Painting, which was held at the East Village. And we just have this wonderful opportunity to have Gracie and Sir here to kind of talk about that exhibit, but also just kind of discuss what it is to be involved in the arts now, then, and kind of where we stand as we speak. So with no further ado, I just would like to kind of start out with an idea of how you guys came up with the idea. It's really inspired me. I thought it was really fun. You guys are sharp as can be with your humor, but also extremely witty with your social commentary. And that's something I've always admired about your gallery and your projects. If you could highlight a little bit what was going on at that time.
There's one thing I have to say, and it came out in your press release in the first sentence, and I think it addresses a lot of some of what we'll be talking about, the difference between doing shows like that then and doing shows like this now. You mentioned something, I think you said that we had commissioned artists to create these sofa paintings. And to me, that was kind of amusing because in the art world of today, because I'm still in touch with younger artists and dealers, and I think that if you were to invite an artist into a sofa painting show today, they would say, they would ask for money. Like, I need money to produce this work. I need money for this. This is my time. I have to get paid for my labor, right? Or the museums do give, in the Whitney Biennial, they do give the artist a certain amount of money to produce the work. But as a gallery, we would never do that. I mean, now I think artists expect it. Back then, when we asked these artists to do it, they just said, hey, and they went and they made it. In terms of even getting the sofas to the gallery, we actually went to the studios and carried them through the streets from their studio into the gallery. And I remember Rodney Greenblatt's could not even fit through the door of his apartment, and we had to push it through the window and hang out he had it hanging out the window, and we had to be down trying to reach up and stand in things to grab it, to carry it from 9th Street over to the gallery.
Nice.
So
We did that yesterday with Juno.
I was gonna
Out the window. Yeah.
it was just like we were interested in making things happen, and the expense or the cost, artists would make stuff with what was available to them. They weren't so concerned about, oh, I need a fabricator to build this, or I need an institution to do that because it has to be museum worthy. We weren't thinking, it was just like, do it. And it came together in a very kind of organic way, and the artists found stuff that they needed and made it. Probably a lot of it was rummaged from the trash, I'm sure, but
there was definitely a lot more trash in New York at that time.
Yeah.
I will say, in defense of our artists, they were extremely willing to actually participate, and I think we chose our artists accordingly to that aspiration. I mean, it's for us, really, the project came together for that connection, and that's something that I think all three of us have really aspired to create that, which is very similar to what you guys were doing in the East Village at that time. Was this, I mean, for lack of a better word, a community, but it was more a striving to make something and to really strike a chord, whether it's at that time, but I think also just for reaching outside of their work itself. And I think that's also something that I see with your projects that you've done. What I'm curious about, because our engagement at the moment is very different. We're on screen, we have a limited amount of people interacting, but with you guys, you did it in the gallery. It was physically there. How did people actually interact with them? I mean, did they just get the joke, or did they also get the sting part of it, which I think was very much there, about this kind of yuppie culture that was rising at the moment? It's the 80s. How was it to visit that exhibit at that time? You've got, what, 6 counters or so kind of confronting you.
Well, I have to say it really was more about what was going on in Soho than and a confrontation to that, because I just looked up I brought the press release out so I could read and try to remember what it was like at that time. And if I could just read the paragraph from there, it kind of says everything about what our idea was behind it. And it says, these artists promise to take the Holiday Inn style of sofa-sized paintings to its highest level. Truly the collector's dream. No more worry about whether the neo-expressionist plate and antler painting will look good over the tufted velvet brocade Chesterfield. At last, a post-graffiti couch to match a post-graffiti painting, a neopop sofa with a neopop painting. Could life be simpler? So I obviously I'm referring to Julian Schnabel in that, which was the Mary Boone era in Soho. And even the beginning of the gallery, the first Lou Division show that I did with Timothy Greathouse, I talk about less is more, smaller spaces that would fit in line with artwork that could fit into an East Village apartment. So it was very much about our community and making a statement about the other art world.
Well, you certainly made a statement about small spaces. I mean, you started out in a bathroom, which, that's always a fantastic beginning. And I always loved your expansion that it went international, where you're the galleries. It was a project I believe you did with Jimmy Doms from Envoy at the time, where you expanded through multiple bathrooms throughout the world, as kind of reacted to like the Larry Gagosian setup. But I'm always kind of struck by your sense of humor from both of you, actually, and I'm curious how that, besides all the seriousness of the weight of the world around us, it seems you guys always kind of strove through it with a smile. And I'm curious how you've done that and how you've experienced it nowadays. Things have changed, and I mean, not just the pandemic, but just the art world in general. How do you feel that what you're doing nowadays within the art world, and how do you still do it with humor, so to speak?
Now I'm a private dealer and an art advisor, not too much humor there.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I still think that you've alluded to some of the projects. There's a photograph that I really like, and we mentioned it earlier before the recording, but I would just like to highlight it. It's the where you guys are dressed up. Could you explain a little bit more about it, either Sir or you? It was a double spread, I believe.
yeah, I have a lot to say about that, and I've spoken about it on panels a lot. When People Magazine approached us to do that, I think it was at a point where a gallery was getting so much attention and we were becoming such celebrities. But the focus was always more on Gracie as this new developing personality in gallery and less about the artist. They were really kind of interested in what Gracie was doing. And I think by 85, I said, Gracie, this is enough. We're becoming a puppets for the camera and to promote things, and we need to get more involved. We need to forefront the artists more. And it wasn't like we were deciding that we didn't want to we were just going along with what the press wanted, which was really this fascination with Gracie, which I think was wonderful. And I think when we decided to do that People Magazine thing, I think at that point I said, this is the last time we're doing our promotion for ourselves, as far as I'm concerned, that I'll participate in. And we'll do it if we could actually style the thing ourselves. In other words, decide what we wanted. And I think they gave us a budget, and I rented a fur coat for Gracie and a chauffeur's limousine, a chauffeur's coat for me and cap. And we got the tray and all the accessories and the limousine. But what?
Oh, sir, we also had, remember, we made those fake uniforms that said Gracie Mansion Gallery across the back of them. They were like white painters uniforms, and we.
Oh, right. With the movers carrying artwork.
Yeah, with Buster and Mike Howard and Buster Cleveland.
Yeah, so we set up this whole scene in front of the Life Cafe, and we got a lot of flack for it. The first flack was that I think when that magazine came out, they mentioned that Gracie and I were married. And a lot of people, even our artists, did not know that Gracie and I were legally married. We sort of went off and did it, right? For the security of the business and stuff like that. But we got a lot of flack because I, as a Black man, looked like I was being subservient to Gracie, being a chauffeur. And my statement was in relation to the article that I had no problems being subservient to my wife, and I think more men should be. Right, but it never, and they didn't realize that it was something that we had styled. It wasn't like they decided to represent me this way in the photo. It was something that we decided to do as ourselves, and was somewhat of a political act. And we got some hate mail that caused to that, right? But we don't need to get into that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's funny. I mean, to look at that image nowadays, and especially what America's going through now, I mean, it's a very different, we look at it very differently. But I still think it strikes very true. And granted, I think you can see that image with how you guys do things in general. I think you can see that it's a critique, if anything more, which I really admire that you guys did that. It would have been an easy opportunity to just be like, oh, let's promote ourselves to make it even bigger. So I really applaud that you kind of kicked the bucket, so to speak. I would like to go back a little bit to the physical show of sofa painting, and just how did you besides how did you come up with it? How is the some of the physical elements which I really would like to kind of talk about. I mean, David's piece I thought was very striking, at least what I've read about it and what you've told me about it, which was, and I was wondering if you could describe it a little bit, the letters, the kind of writing. I think it's a very bold move from the artist who was having doubts about showing between two galleries. I mean, I won't get too much into the story, I'll let you tell it, but I thought it was a very bold move from both you and the artist, and being able to show that frailty within your gallery. So I was curious if you could talk a little bit more about that piece.
Well, actually, I mean, we didn't have, it's not like I had a choice, or we had a choice of whether we were going to show the piece or not. I mean, this is the piece that David did. And with David, we never knew what anything was until it walked in the door. I mean, never in any show was I able to preview anything. David just didn't let it happen. And with that, it was actually his, the text, he found a banquette on the street from like a bar, and the bottom cushion was missing. So I think it's a piece of plexiglass over the top, and he took, he took writing that he had made about, at that point in his life, there were 3 galleries who were pressuring him for representation. It was Civilian Warfare, myself, and Hal Brahm. And so he wrote about all of that, and then he strategically painted, he put it under plexiglass, and then he painted on the plexiglass, so you couldn't really read the text, but we knew what it was.
Amazing.
And so you've seen it more frequently because it's in Jim Stark's loft.
Yeah, he has it buried. He says he has the whole thing. It's like put away, but he's never really pulled it down from wherever he had it stored to for me to examine it more closely. But he does have the crates and the banquette and the painting still.
That's amazing. I also love that you guys actually sold these elements as one piece, which, and the checklist might actually be my favorite part of this show now, you know, kind of as an archive, just the way things are divided and the price times.
Dealers today would kind of split it up and sell the painting and the sofa separately just to move more art. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, listen, if they want to buy my cushions, I'll sell it. But I know Norma and Hannah Mayoto, so want to have some questions, and I'm taking too much room of this stage. So I just wanted to kind of introduce them and raise some points to their questions. Norma, I don't know if you wanted to begin.
Okay, but I'm curious to know if people could sit in the sofa during the show or the opening, if there was an opening, except for the, sorry.
They were works of art, like any work of art that would be in a museum. You don't sit on it, you just look
so
at
people
it.
couldn't sit, okay. And
the people who bought them,
yeah,
used them.
And did you manage to sell all of them?
No, and actually I have to correct it. We did sell them separately, I'm pretty sure.
Good, huh? Okay.
Well, I don't think anybody, I don't, the ones that we sold Rhonda's, we sold Rodney's, and we didn't sell that couch that Stephen made, nor the couch that Bidlow made, because we had that couch in the gallery when we moved to Avenue A.
And what eventually happened to it?
I don't know, must have gone back to Mike, but I mean, Mike Bidlow's was a Pollock over every couch, a chicken in every pot and a Pollock over every couch. And we literally had a pot cooking a chicken all day long in the gallery.
In the gallery?
Yeah.
Oh, that must have, oh, said to that. That's a nice homecoming. My God, that's, you guys really sacrificed quite a bit. I mean, granted, we're doing it the same, but that's a lot. I don't know about the boiling chicken part. Sorry, and I'm curious. There was also this piece that I find very intriguing. It was the Claudia de Monte piece.
Yes.
Can you describe a little bit how that actually looked? Because on the images it was a little hard to read, but you had alluded to it before.
Oh, wait a minute. I have to say something. I'm glad I pulled this stuff up. I'm looking at the price list, and we had a price. For Mike Bidlow, the painting wasn't even for sale, but we had a price for each, like a price for the painting, a price for the couch, and then we had bargain price for both. And there would be like another price. And for Rhonda's, it says bargain, buy the painting, pillow and ashtray, and get the couch for free.
Fantastic.
So
It's true. And Stephen Lack's dead body. I mean, that must have been quite a sight to see.
oh God, I love that piece. That was so fantastic. I mean, I think each artist really approached it from a very creative point of view. I mean, they didn't just slapdash this stuff off. I mean, there was a political message behind all of them.
Yeah, you'd asked about Claudia de Montes. Claudia de Montes' piece sat flat on the wall, it was created on heavy foam core, like maybe half-inch foam core that was really thick. And she would paint on it with acrylic paints. And I think she also used that paint that was a little bit puffy, that had a little bit dimensions. You kind of put it on and it puffs up.
Yeah.
So I think there were some elements of that on the foam core, but it sat flat on the wall. And then the painting over it was probably also cut out of foam core, painted and put flat on the wall.
Oh, that's great.
So it's like a painting of a couch.
Right.
Which is funny.
Yeah. But
Yeah, no, it's very appropriate because
actual, size of an actual couch, and it sat low, close to the floor, and the painting went over it.
oh, it still had another painting above it as well.
Yeah, all the sofas had something above it, had a painting above
No,
it.
I mean even the foam core, that wasn't just the piece itself. There was another additional element rising above it.
Also
Right.
made of foam core, the same material, both flat, like a painting of a couch and a painting of a painting over a couch.
Yeah, it's funny because Norma's artist actually, well, I'll let Norma tell the story a little bit, but it was a kind of a drama. He was supposed to come to Italy. Of course, the pandemic hit. It didn't happen, and then he actually cut out a couch and pasted it onto the wall. But Norma, if you could tell a little bit about the process of what the artist did, I think it was oddly enough kindred spirits without knowing.
Yeah. The result of the fact that he couldn't come was that he decided to make a sort of drawing of a sofa on canvas. So it's at the same moment a painting, a drawing, a sofa, but it's more like a conceptual sofa. And on this sofa, there are a projection of shadows and a story that he tells about this sofa. Because the conceptual sofa that we are showing is inspired by a real sofa. I mean, we don't know if it's really real, but the story is about a real sofa that he owned and that he and his wife bought. So it contains, in a way, the story of his life and love and daily life, in a way. So, but in a way, we had to do this way because of this moment. That's a very different thing of that moment when you made the sofa painting show, because now we can't have people coming. So we are thinking the project in a totally differently way for the virus. So we don't know what is your impression of this way, different way to show a piece of art.
Yeah, it's for the artist actually is going to be doing a performance, which is kind of great, where besides having the sofa on the wall, he's going to do projections, and there will be a live feed, asking questions, interacting with the audience. So we're trying to really connect to an audience that clearly isn't there. I mean, as far as like the normal circumstance, I think Hannah's is going to be quite exciting as well, because is exciting because it's already happened even when we record this. But it's a great talk show, and I think actually it reminds me a little bit of the craziness of like Rodney's work, just so as far as all the colors and all the extremities. But Hannah, if you could tell a little bit about your projects to the table and the connection to the project, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm working with my artist Juno Calypso. So she is very excited about the 80s. I'm actually wearing the 80s power jacket. This is not what I normally wear, but this is actually normally on the skeleton that we have on the sofa. And we did actually carry out of the window yesterday the pink sofa from her house. And I said, do you want to come and do something to do with a sofa? Have you got any kind of, and she's like, yes, I really need to get rid of this pink sofa. Please let me use it. So we carried it out of the window yesterday, drove in a van. I mean, it was very much in the spirit of like, let's just use it. And now she lives off eBay. So it's like, that's the same kind of thing. Everything is, just sourced cheaply and just innovated. But she was really excited about the 80s. It was like, this was like a kind of I mean, she was born in 1989, so she's technically part of it. But obviously, this is for her looking back and getting excited about the clothes, the style, her kind of outlook was Oprah meets Beetlejuice. That was her kind of thing. So yeah, we've had a lot of fun looking over, your press release and the price list, and yeah, it's brilliant. So we've been really excited to take part. But it says oh, okay, I've got a message on the screen.
I'll try to take offense that it's a skeleton in 80s clothes.
But it's the ghost of chat shows past. It's like it's a lot of fun. So it's the humor there. That's what we really picked up on. 80 and Juno, she's got that. I think you're like, she's got that sense of humor. So when you were thinking about the artists, like which artists did you? I mean, that you've got the humor. Did they have the humor, or is it like the political side of it, or is it just you just let them? Who were you attracted to ask?
I don't know, sir. What? I mean, these were artists. These were 6 of the artists we were working with. I don't know how the choice got down to.
I think, basically all the artists were sort of our friends. We kind of met them and we came together in a very organic way. It wasn't like we had a list of artists about what could we went right to our friends, right? Oh yeah, Steven, he'd be great. Oh yeah, Rhonda was doing that stuff and we're gonna give her a show, so let's include her. I think all the artists that were in the show were artists that we were either going to do a show with or had done a show with, but we were still open to, probably if you had a bigger space, you would have invited more artists. But I think all those artists who were in the show were primarily the early artists that Gracie started working with, or that, I think Buster Cleveland wasn't in there. He would have been an early one, but I can't imagine Buster making a sofa. I mean, he lived with his portable portfolio and his brown bag with beer in it.
Actually, Rodney included, both Rodney and Rhonda included their sofas in shows that came up after that. So we must not have sold them during those shows.
Right. Yeah, recycled. We recycled.
Really didn't. It's funny because like selling things was not really uppermost in our, I mean, nobody who was thinking in terms of selling would come up with such a ridiculous idea.
I was going to say, because some of these weren't very practical. I mean, like Steve, dead body.
I mean, David's was not practical. And yeah, I mean, Mike Bidlow's wasn't even for sale. Stevens, you're right, a dead person laying on a couch. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, for us, it was this kind of, I mean, it's a show that just kind of lingered in my head always. And it was an interesting opportunity kind of, and I really appreciate it actually that you've allowed us to kind of take this idea and turn it around and kind of make it is still applicable. And, for us, it definitely still has also kind of a political effect. Just we are all as a world kind of stuck where we are. We are in this position. Like, how do we present ourselves? And I think the 3 of us really got this sense of, okay, what is our role? Sending another JPEG, doing another thing is just, it's boring and I don't want to see anymore. And it's like, but I do want to work and I do want to show and have a conversation. And I think
you're presenting a lot of the shows the people are presenting stuff for the market. They have a plan. They have some collectors they want to get in touch with. We didn't have any collectors. We didn't have we didn't understand the market. We were just doing this thing as a big social club thing. Yes, we wanted people to recognize it. And yes, we wanted collectors to come in and buy it. But we didn't have this list of collectors. We didn't even know who they were. We couldn't name even the names of curators who were in a museum. We were really kind of naive. We learned all that stuff as we went along. And people would come and visit the gallery and we'd learn more. So it was really like a learning curve. And it took us a few years to get up to speed where we really understood how things worked. But, we did things to make things happen, to make it exciting for each other and what would happen. And we figured it was exciting enough, it would be infectious and more people would come. And eventually, because of the colors and the excitement of the show, it was photographed by everyone who's running around the East Village. And I think that photography that got out had a lot to do with bringing gallery, because our shows were so colorful. They made great photographs, you know, it wasn't on white walls. We never painted our gallery walls white. We did a different color. The artists had a chance to paint the gallery any color that they wanted except white. And that changed in 1984 because the artists wanted white galleries because they wanted people to see what their work would look like in a museum, as if a museum couldn't paint the walls a color, you know.
Because I always noticed that actually from all your installation shots, you guys had always a different color. I mean, your architecture was very dominant, which I thought was kind of intriguing. I mean, besides it being, of course, the East Village, which has a kind of a dominant, you know, architectural elements in the building itself. I mean, you guys painted every single tone. It was nuts.
And
but
then we moved to Avenue A when we had the big white space. I hired Michael McDonough to be the architect for that space, and he had the idea to do a frieze around the gallery of letters made out of twigs. And, you know, we were able to pick what text we wanted. So we picked Frank O'Hara's poem, Avenue A. So that ran in twig letters around the gallery. The artists hated it. I can remember some of them like trying to put like foam core over top of it to hide it, and you know.
Yeah, we also had enough sense to build floating walls because we painted the gallery for every show, so we didn't have to do any cutting. The walls were sort of floated, so we could just roll them and paint out the whole gallery fairly quickly.
yeah.
But we also did the floors. So
The floors?
we painted the floors too.
Yeah, because they were plywood floors.
Oh, no. You guys are giving way too many ideas to my artist. No, please. It's not happening anymore. This is going to be off the books.
Politics, but obviously we wanted to let you talk about whatever you prefer to talk, but we were really curious when Bart proposed this project about the whole exhibition, the exhibition in particular, but also your involvement in the gallery movement in New York. And so it's also very interesting for this specific moment to hear you speak about an exhibition that we cannot see, because now there are a lot of, Harold Seaman had his show made all over again in Venice. We have photographs, and so it's really interesting to imagine your show through your own words, through the spoken words, which is also the material that our artist uses.
Yeah.
We were really curious to hear what you had to say about it, because even if you mentioned that there was a lot of photography, it was really hard to see the show. We found like a couple of photographs on the internet, but to actually see it, it was very hard. So it's more like an imagined show.
Well, you have to imagine that the gallery itself, that first gallery was the first gallery in my bathroom was very small. It was just a toilet and 3 walls. But the space that Sarah and I had on 10th Street, it was, I don't know, it was probably 10 feet wide, 12 feet.
Yeah,
Probably 10.
no, probably 10 feet. It was fairly narrow. It was narrow and long.
But in that space, we had, the exhibition space was maybe 10 feet wide. I would say the exhibition space maybe might have been 15 feet deep, because I think those buildings were 25 feet deep. And then at the back, I had an office, we had storage, we had a bathroom. So it was a small space that was easy to, not each sir did this, but to make into an environment, because it was very close. So you could, we wanted to give people a sense that they were walking into something different each time. And the artist was creating those environments, which is much harder to do in a big space.
Yeah, there was one opportunity where Gracie had lost her apartment. Yes. And she didn't know what to do with all of her stuff. She couldn't afford storage. So she moved all her furniture into the gallery, and we hung artworks around it, and we called it a salon show. And I remember
Salon des Artistes. We always had a big idea. Salon des Artistes, and we made stationery, Salon des Artistes stationery. I wish it must be somewhere, because I thought that I would have time to like sit and write letters to people on this stationery, which
By hand, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I remember that was the first time Warhol visited our gallery. He was so impressed.
That's funny.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because you had gone shopping for some shoes or something. This might have been before the People magazine.
Oh, that's when I went to Diane B. And
Right.
I got these Gautier gloves that laced all the way up. And actually, Peter Huchard put those gloves in that Diane B promotion that he did. But yeah, I remember coming back and saying that we were like really desperately poor at that moment. And I thought that I had to go out and spend money because that was going to bring money to us.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah. Yeah. Andy was also impressed with with the shopping bags from where you'd been shopping in Soho. I remember making a comment on that.
He certainly did like his shopping bags, that's for sure. But I'm curious. I mean, you had mentioned the idea of like how things have changed, and I mean, besides the behemoth, business aspect of certain galleries, I'm very curious now with this kind of breakdown that we're all having all at the same time. What's going to come out of this, and how it will not just affect us all, but how it will be reinterpreted. I think it's going to be an interesting way how things are actually going to be spreading out, also with the ability to do internet exchanges and so forth. I mean, I'll be curious to see what you think about how we can deal with it nowadays, with having that kind of I don't want to say spontaneous reactions to, like, you're doing your sofa paintings show or doing your apartment show, but how can we allow that space to happen again? I think that's going to be interesting, and I think that with this full breakdown, I think we may get that once again. But I'll be curious to see what your thoughts are about that, maybe, especially in the current state of things. We've had this implosion of art business, so to speak, and we can't ignore it. I mean, it's there, but I think there's still some beating hearts under us all.
I think the big difference that we can't ignore is real estate. When Sarah and I opened that gallery, our rent was $500 a month, and that was true with everybody who opened. I mean, the East Village was devastated. There were blocks and blocks of just bricks that the landlords couldn't pay the real estate taxes, and they just came and bulldozed down the buildings, and it was dangerous and it was crazy. And a lot of the spaces, probably all of the spaces where the galleries opened up had been places where they were dealing drugs out of them. So the landlords were just so happy to get somebody that wasn't a drug dealer into their space, and those initial rents were low. Now, when you look at the overhead for a gallery, it's astronomical. I mean, you have to sell paintings for very high prices, and you have to sell a lot of them, and you can't ignore the market. I mean, that has really affected things, and I think in the future that everything is going to get smaller again in every way. I mean, I think that people will there'll be more about neighborhoods. People will want to walk to their local gallery. It's, local artists, local galleries, and smaller spaces, cutting down and making it more about art in the future.
That's a great
Yeah, let's really hope so.
Great message. We really hope.
I have another question. So we were, as Maria said, it were really interesting to hear from you about the exhibition, because of course we saw pictures, we read articles, but we wanted to know more. But I was wondering, what did you think when Bart first proposed to you our idea? What was your impression about this exhibition and the idea that we would have done like a similar exhibition as again
Norma.
after so many years? What was your impression about this?
What was my impression? Well, you know, I think it was kind of curious and fascinating, and that was a kind of interesting show, and it's been photographed. I mean, conceptually and everything, it was pretty interesting. So I think that was a pretty good point to bring up, because it talks about not only collectors and environment, but also artists and their whole thing, and the potential of how you could do things in a gallery. It opens up a lot of questions about how one might present shows today, how far you can go with presenting shows. I think Gracie was like brilliant for coming up with a lot of ideas to create shows. We did one called the first show that you did was the box lunch thing, right? In that gallery space in 10th Street.
East Village Art, food for thought.
East Village Art, food for thought. So people had to make a lunchbox now.
They had, yes, they had to do a boxed lunch and a wall piece. So
Right.
there was a shelf with a box lunch and there was a wall piece. And this was the first show that we did when we opened up there. And the idea was to raise money for the gallery.
Yeah.
So if people had to bid on the box lunches.
Right, right. That's something we should bring back into galleries, having people come in and bid on the artworks.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, they do it at fundraisers, right?
Yeah, that's sometimes that might be a little more depressing though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The experience was, we were naive about that too, and the experience was enlightening, because we had a cutoff time when the bidding was going to be over. And I think it was Stanley Schenker that came into the gallery and wouldn't put a bid down until like the last second, because he didn't want to, you know, the price to be raised above what he had bid. So.
Well, at least you got to see the truth of people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the other conceptual show that Gracie did that was really wonderful was that Mike Howard, where he did 100 paintings that were numbered. Each painting had a number. There's identical painting, and there were 100 paintings, and each painting was $100, was it?
108.25, because that included tax.
Yeah,
right. So each painting was 108.25, and all the paintings were identical, but painted one at a time, and there were 100 of them. And each painting had a number, and then there was a raffle for the number, and you could buy the painting, and if your raffle came up, you could win a prize, which was like a motor scooter or a television or a...
It was a trip to Paris.
A trip to Paris. That was a
trip to Paris
of an Eiffel Tower, and it was his, you know, win a trip to Paris thing. But then he also, because to build the installation, he said he wanted it. He was inspired by bank giveaways, like it used to be. If you opened up a checking account, they would give you a toaster or you know, some funky gift. So he did an installation that had a motorcycle or like a motorbike. And there were a bunch of other gifts that were all on plinths in the exhibition. And we rented a big wheel to turn with 100 things on for the number to come up. And Lynn Gumpert won. And she won the trip to Paris, and she already had an apartment in Paris.
Yeah. So she figured there's 100 paintings for $100. You know, they could sell pretty quickly. So 100 times 100. So you have a cash thing, and trips to Paris were pretty cheap, right? You can get
I hope so. Yeah.
Paris then for like $300. You could.
That's amazing. Yeah. Well, and plus you had rent for $500. So yeah, then you can do those things. I could just imagine.
That was at the bigger gallery. Our rent was then $1,500.
Okay. All right. That's amazing. That's amazing. But I love it. I love the way you guys were able to kind of play on the concept of the market. I mean, even if you didn't necessarily intend on it that way, just I think it's where you guys were very on the nose as far as like just making a comment about what you see, and that I really appreciate as far as you guys within as dealers. You know, it's I think now, not say nowadays, but just now, I think a lot of times people aren't necessarily thinking about their shows, and they're just kind of thinking about, oh, let's put up a painting and so forth, rather than like, hey, what's this concept, you know, and kind of being involved in this whole process of not just creating art, but also presenting art. And that I hope is going to have a little bit of a comeback. So, you know, our role, I mean, I was talking to Hannah, and in the first couple of months, we were just kind of scratching our head, like, what are we going to do? Who are we going to be? And it was more of, the interesting part was that people were contacting us, asking us our opinion. And I was like, yeah, that's why we're doing this, because we are certain editors. We see things a certain way. That's our role. And it sounds very simple, but it's sometimes good to kind of be reminded of your rock and be like, yeah, this is, and that's why we wanted to do this project, because it's really going to rely on the three of us reacting to the artwork, reacting to people. And that you're going to see that moment come alive again, hopefully. And I mean, that's why you kind of do a gallery. I think at least that's our motivation for at least the three of us here, is that there is this greater purpose. It's not just a bank account and something in it, you know. It's there's more to it, hopefully. It better be. But you know,
I'm super honored you picked our show.
oh, please. That was easiest. The hard part was which one, you know. It's and the lunchbox. Then now I'm done. But the trip to Paris, that one I'm not going to copy. Sorry, that's not going to happen. I might rig it and I might go myself, but yeah.
But when?
Yeah, exactly.
Able to go again.
I just listen. I taken up quite a bit of your time, but I really appreciate that you allowed us to kind of share this idea, reinvent it. I'm glad we kind of were able to revisit it, hopefully put some new life into it. We really enjoy your work that you've done and the work that you're still doing. We really appreciate that, and we really want to just say thank you and appreciate that the things you've done and like I said, and still are doing. So for that, thanks. And speaking, I'm sure on behalf of the other two, or excuse me, four. So this is great. And with that, this was the closure of that talk, and I'll stop the recording. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.